Millionaire's twins crying on plane at midnight, but then a 7-year-old did the unthinkable. The cabin lights flickered ominously as the private jet soared through the inky darkness of midnight. High above the clouds, something unsettling hung in the air. The soft hum of the engines was a distant murmur against the high-pitched sobs of two identical little girls, their perfectly styled hair cascading like golden waterfalls over their designer dresses. There was no mistaking it, these weren't just any kids aboard. They were the daughters of one of the richest men in America, and they were terrified. What could frighten them so deeply? A storm lay ahead, an immense wall of clouds blocking out the starlight. The girls clutched each other like lifelines, tears streaming down their porcelain cheeks, and their cries echoed through the plush interior. It sent a shiver down the spines of the adults seated nearby, who glanced nervously at one another. Then there was a sudden flicker of something in the corner, an odd, dazzling light slowly growing brighter. Was it the reflection of lightning or something more sinister? Then, a tiny voice broke through the tension. A 7-year-old boy, scrunched up in his seat, threw off his blanket and stared at the girls with wide, curious eyes. His chubby cheeks shimmered with wonder and innocence. "Why are you crying?" he asked boldly, his small fists clutching the fabric like a shield. The adults tensed at his audacity, surprised he had the courage to address the twin heiresses. It was almost like watching a match spark in a dark room, illuminating the faces of the curious onlookers. The twins' sobbing faltered, their big blue eyes locking onto his. Silence blanketed the cabin, a pregnant pause that held everyone's breath. Suddenly, the boy grinned wide, as if he had a secret that the rest of them didn't know. "I bet I can make you laugh," he declared, bouncing in his seat, his excitement bubbling over. "Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." As he readied himself, the room shifted again, the air thick with unresolved tension. The girls looked at each other, uncertain, horror still dancing on their faces. Were they scared? Or were they just curious enough to let an innocent child break through the wall of grief? The boy flicked his fingers dramatically and impersonated a cartoon character with exaggerated motions, and for a split second, disbelief mixed with something else, an urge to smile, to feel light again. Then, in a heartbeat, a window shattered nearby, sending glass flying and screams erupting. Shadows moved outside, figures gliding across the wing of the plane, too swift to grasp. The child's playful gesture slipped into chaos, the moment fracturing under pressure. What had just lurked in the dark was now closer than anyone could have anticipated, bringing with it a foreboding sense of dread. Eyes widened. Hearts raced. The girls gasped together, tightening their grip on one another. What had they unleashed? And just then, amid the cacophony, another loud boom echoed from above, like thunder in the most bizarre dance of fate. Would the boys' laughter be enough to push away the shadows threatening to invade their serene escape? What had they just invited into their world during that single moment of innocence? Was this truly just a game, or something much more sinister lurking nearby? Time hung suspended, as fear filled the cabin, leaving only one inevitable question hanging in the air: what lay ahead? The cabin erupted in chaos as the glass rained down like sparkling confetti, cutting through the shouts and shrieks that filled the air. Parents rushed forward to shield their children, while frantic conversations spiraled into a frantic whirlpool of panic. The shock of the explosion was palpable. "Get down!" screamed one flight attendant, her voice piercing through the confusion. The boy froze, his laughter falling into silence. He instinctively crawled into the floor space beneath his seat, pulling his knees up to his chest, wide eyes reflecting the horror unfolding around him. The twins huddled together, instinctively pushing themselves further into the plush fabric of their seats. Their wide blue eyes darted around the cabin, searching for some understanding amidst the dread. A shadow passed across the window, a dark silhouette that hovered perilously close. Is it the storm? One of the wealthy passengers whispered, his voice trembling. Sweat lined his brow, and his hands gripped the armrest as if it were a lifeline. Look! Another person shouted, pointing toward the windows, which were now illuminated with flashes of light. It was not lightning. They soon realized it was the glimmer of something metallic slicing through the clouds. The plane jolted as turbulence hit, causing a collective gasp to echo. Everyone felt it, a bone-rattling thrust that sent the passengers tumbling against their seatbelts. The panic morphed into a primal fear, whispers escalated into cries. Stay calm. Stay seated, urged the captain over the intercom, but his voice sounded distant, almost swallowed by the chaos outside. The cabin continued to shake, like an angry beast tossing its prey at in the midst of the fear. The boy began to whimper, his small hand clutching onto a toy he had taken aboard, a simple stuffed bear now stained with sweat from the effort of clinging to it. He dared to peek out from under the seat and saw the twins staring back at him, faces drawn with dread. If we make a funny face together, it'll be fine, he exclaimed suddenly, nothing but desperation driving his childish logic. See? Like this. He scrunched up his nose and puffed out his cheeks comically. The twins exchanged anxious glances. Would laughter indeed chase away their fears? For a second, their sobs quieted, curiosity briefly puncturing the haze of panic. Just then, the electric hum of the engines faded. Power flickered, plummeting the cabin into a half-darkness where shadows danced on the walls. The cold grip of reality tightened, merging with the blaring alarms triggering in their ears. The girls squeezed each other's hands, and one whispered, "What's happening?" And then, through the murkiness, they all heard it, a low growl, rumbling from beyond the windows, almost like a warning. Was it the storm or something much more ominous lurking in the dark? A shimmer of fear darted across their faces as the shadows outside began to shift and change, forming shapes that were unmistakably human. In that moment, clarity struck like a whip. If we don't do something, we might not make it, the boy urged, now a blend of courage interwoven with terror. Little did they know, their world was about to flip upside down, as the thing in the dark approached with an undeniable hunger. Don't let them take us, one of the twins shouted, determination rising but fear still lurking behind her voice. Just as they reached the brink of desperate resolution, the lights flickered violently again, and the cabin doors rattled ominously. What awaited them as the shadows grew nearer? What would they have to face to survive the night? The cabin doors rattled with an unsettling clamor, each shake sending ripples of fear through the already terrified passengers. The shadows outside grew denser, twisting and morphing against the cabin windows like living smoke. Voices rose higher, cries piercing the air, as desperation took hold. Stay calm. Please. The flight attendant begged, her eyes wide enough to envelop an ocean of worry. But calming was impossible amid the rising storm, as the power continued to flicker like a faulty bulb in an haunted house. Why aren't we moving? One man shouted, clenching his jaw, his knuckles white against the armrest. Maybe they can't, murmured another passenger, his voice trembling, eyes darting to the windows. The twins exchanged glances, heartbeats echoing loudly in the eerie silence that followed. What do we do? One asked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know. The other replied, squeezing her sister's hand tighter. The girl pressed her face against the window, straining to catch any glimpse of hope amid the growing darkness. Then, from the pit of anxiety that blanketed them, the boy scrambled out from under his seat. We have to help, he declared, bravely pushing his small frame into the aisle, brows furrowed like a tiny warrior ready for battle. The others stared in disbelief, caught between wanting to follow him or dragging him back to safety. What? A passenger stammered, You're just a kid. I'm not scared, he shouted, clenching his stuffed bear like a shield. If we're still here, they haven't gotten us yet. That small voice ignited a flicker of something just beneath the surface, a collective longing to fight back instead of cowering in fear. Whispered conversations began trickling through the cabin, blending with fear, curiosity, and a hint of hope. Okay, let us think, the flight attendant shouted above the chaos, mustering as much authority as she could. We check the emergency exits. There must be a way. Just then, the cabin lights flashed, and the oppressive darkness shattered. A figure materialized at the front of the plane, tall, clad in ominous black, backlit by an unnatural glow. It raised its hands slowly, fingers elongated like shadows reaching out. Panic seized the crowd again, screams punctuating the air with piercing clarity. "Get away from him!" one of the twins screamed, stepping protectively in front of the boy. The brave yet foolish act sparked a new wave of resolve among the others. One sturdy man stood up. "We have to stick together." The shadow stranger stepped closer, the glow revealing no features, only a void where a face should be. A low, rumbling laugh echoed through the cabin. "You think you can protect him? You're in over your heads." "No," the boy shouted, pointing his stuffed bear valiantly at the figure. "We can fight. I want to let you take us." The words hung in the air, defiant, unyielding. The cabin shifted, passengers murmured, uncertainty dancing around them like the shadows. Then, without warning, the figure lunged, and the chaos escalated. The scream that escaped one of the twins caught in their throats. The pressurized air suddenly surged, followed by a boom that rattled the walls, and the cabin tilted violently. Was it an attack? A warning? All eyes shifted toward the dark entity as it reached for them, ready to engulf everything in darkness. Amidst the whipped chaos, one question echoed louder than the others: would their bravery be enough to confront the unseen terror closing in on them? As the cabin spun, the boy squeezed his bear tighter, knowing they'd have to make a choice before it was too late. The cabin jolted, sending bodies sprawling as fear morphed into a primal instinct to survive. The boy held on to his stuffed bear as if it could shield him from the chaos, but he wasn't the only one grasping for something tangible. Passengers scrambled for their seats, panic morphing into frantic gestures. Hands clutched armrests, and wild eyes darted to the front, where the dark figure loomed ominously, its presence growing like an eclipse swallowing light. Amid the panic, the twins stood frozen, hearts thundering against their ribcages, caught between fear and the bedrock of their shared determination. "Hey!" one of the twins shouted, her voice breaking through the din. "We have to stick together. We can't let it split us apart." Her words were a lifeline in a stormy sea. Slowly, a few heads turned toward her. "What do you mean?" a distressed woman near the emergency exit asked, desperation flickering in her eyes like the cabin lights. "If we hold on to each other, we're stronger," the twin continued, glancing at her sister for support. The slight nod was enough to embolden her. "Listen, we can't let it isolate us. We fight back together." The boy's small frame trembled, but he felt a flicker of hope spark inside him. "Yeah. Together," he echoed, voice strong despite the terror wrapping around them like a vice. With gathered resolve, the passengers moved, pulling together, some forming a tight circle, while others stood ready, prepared to flee or defend. The sturdy man pushed against the dark presence, attempting to shield the younger passengers, while the flight attendant urged them to find safety near the emergency exits. "Stay close," she yelled over the cacophony. "We'll find a way out together." The shadowy figure paused, its fingers stretching like tendrils, as if assessing this newfound resistance. A chilling laugh bubbled from the void. "Pathetic," it sneered. "You really think you can fight what's coming? This is just the beginning." But the cabin had transformed. Panic was thick, but mingled with adrenaline and something brighter: defiance. The fabric of fear had begun to tear, revealing resilience. The passengers formed a tether of hope amidst the darkness. "Now!" shouted the flight attendant, her voice sharp, rising above the chaos. "We move to the exits." Just then, a brilliant flash of light burst through the cabin. An otherworldly presence flooded the aisles, illuminating shadows with a spectral glow. The entity recoiled, retreating slightly as if burned. Gasps filled the air, surprise washing over the crowd like a rejuvenation tide. "Faster!" the sturdy man urged, reaching for the first exit door, wrenching it open. But as he pulled, a horrid scream erupted from one of the twins, sending icy tendrils of fear spiraling back into their hearts. Wait. Look. She yelled, pointing toward the opening that revealed not safety, but a vast emptiness, like staring into a void that wanted to consume them whole. It's a trap. Fear screamed through their whispers, and the boy tightened his grip, looking around, searching for answers. The glossy darkness thickened, swirling inside the cabin as the catering carts clanked violently against one another. The collective breath caught in their throats as the shadows pooled and thickened like ink, spilling toward them. Group up. The flight attendant shouted, her voice a grounding force amid the maelstrom of noise. We have to be ready. But readiness felt impossible. Was there even a way out amidst the constricting shadows and sinister laughter that echoed in their ears? The passengers huddled together, hearts pounding, waiting for the decision that would either buoy them through the darkness or send them spiraling into oblivion. In that breathless moment, when survival clashed with despair, one question lingered in the air: how were they to confront despair when it seemed entirely too powerful? Before they could grasp the weight of what was coming, the darkness surged again, roaring with hunger, leaving them with little time to decide. The darkness roared, an angry beast unleashed, swallowing the cabin whole. The boy's heart raced as he felt the coldness crawl up his spine. The laughter grew louder, an echoing sneer that throbbed through the air, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Hold on tight. The sturdy man bellowed as he tried to keep the circle of scared souls intact. The twins exchanged a frantic glance, sharing unspoken words of fear and determination. Ready? The flight attendant shouted, her voice uncertain but laced with urgency. They all nodded, a tight camaraderie forged in the fires of dread. They could feel the shadows reaching for them, sliding over the floor, hungry to drag them down. Then, something shifted in the luminous glow. A shape sudden and bright appeared in the midst, silhouetting against the dark. It was the boy, puffing out his tiny chest, clutching his bear like a knight wielding a sword. Stop it. You can't have us. He yelled, his voice cracking but filled with unexpected bravery. A hush enveloped the cabin as the laughter ceased, turning to a puzzled silence. A wave of astonishment washed over the adults, their fear-chiseled faces flickering with disbelief. The dark figure hesitated, and for a moment, the shadows slackened, recoiling as though the boy's words had stung them. What a foolish child, it hissed, but there was a quiver in its voice, a falter that didn't go unnoticed. Encouraged, the boy stepped forward, still gripping his teddy bear. You don't own us. We are more than just frightened people. We're a team. His little voice rang clear as the thoughts formed a chaotic blend in the adults' minds. That's right. We're a team. Shouted one of the twins, a spark igniting in her chest. Other voices joined in, frantically shouting encouragement. Together. Fight back. A chorus surged from their hearts, transforming fear into raw energy. The cabin pulsed with newfound power, a shield against the creeping shadows as they shouted in unison. The flight attendant's eyes widened in disbelief as the very atmosphere vibrated with defiance, a force charging through every soul present. Look! The other twin yelled, pointing. The shadows blurred, twisting in sudden agitation. The monstrous presence recoiled further, its visage flickering as though struggling to maintain grasp on its form. The resolve of the passengers coalesced, their voices carrying an undeniable strength that rocked the entity. Then the lights flickered again, washing over them in radiant waves. Each flicker illuminated not only the faces of terror but also the unity born from desperation. In that fleeting moment of power, the boy felt something shift within him. It wasn't just fear dissolving, it was something deeper, the blossoming realization of his own strength. What's happening? Someone whispered, eyes wide in recognition of a singular moment that redefined them. The shadow snarled, a sound like rusting metal scraping across flesh. You think this will hold? It growled, but the tremor in its voice suggested doubt. Let it go, shouted the sturdy man, moving towards the shadow, a beacon of courage. You're weak. You can't break us. The figure shook, fury transforming into desperation as the luminous force pressed against it. And then, in a sudden surge, the entity lunged forward, sending a wave of darkness crashing into the circle of light. The passenger screamed, the boy's bear falling from his grasp. It was chaos, bodies jostling against one another, fear clawing back into their throats as they felt the darkness lash out. But the twins stood resolute, eyes locked with the boy. "We've got this," they shouted, reaching for his hands, pulling him back into their circle. Then, a gasp. A flicker of light from the emergency exits, not just light but a pathway, shimmering as if alive. "Over there," one of the twins cried, pointing towards the beckoning glow. Was it their escape? Would it lead them to safety, or was it another cruel trick of the darkness? As they turned to flee, the shadows surged one last time, an unholy scream echoing through the cabin, daring them to take the leap into the unknown. The cabin collided with panic, bodies stumbling as the darkness lurched toward them, hungry and impatient. The boy's heart pounded against his ribs, but the light was there, pulsating like a living thing, wrapping around them like a guardian. "Run!" screamed the flight attendant, her voice piercing through the chaos. For a fragile moment, the swirling shadows hesitated, as if confused by the sudden rush of defiance. The passengers darted towards the glow, that shimmering promise of hope, but the shadows roared back, a tempest of malevolence, churning around them with a speed that left terror in its wake. "Fools!" the dark entity hissed, twisting into grotesque shapes in the corners of their vision. "You think you can escape me?" The twins squeezed the boy's hands tighter. "We stick together," they insisted, their faces twisted in a mix of fear and determination as they led him toward the light. Each step felt like a battle against the currents of darkness, but they pushed on, buoyed by the warmth of their bond. The boy stumbled but didn't let go. "I'm not afraid," he shouted, his voice breaking through the howling void. "You can't scare me." With those words, the shadows flickered, a veil lifting just enough for them to see the exit ahead, brighter than before. "Almost there. Keep going," the sturdy man urged, pulling everyone closer. The light beckoned like a friend pulling them from the water. Suddenly, the darkness unfurled with a loud snap, tendrils whipping out like serpents, reaching for them with icy fingers. One shot passed, grazing the boy's shoulder. He gasped, feeling the chill cut through the warmth of the circle. A creeping dread slithered into his mind. What if he didn't make it? What if they all got pulled back? "Don't look back," shouted one of the twins, the urgency in her voice cutting through the panic. "We can do this." They charged forward, hearts sinking with adrenaline, stepping into the brilliant light. It felt like jumping into cool water on a scorching day, a refreshing lift against the weight of darkness. As they neared the emergency exit, a surge of power pulsed through the cabin, pushing back against the relentless shadows, a final stand fueled by their unity. But something shifted. The vibrant light dimmed as quickly as it had flared. The boy glanced behind him, the shadows coiling tight, their form writhing and regrouping, plotting an even greater attack. Fear latched onto his throat. Would they make it? The air felt electric, the energy shifting as he glanced at the twins. They were no longer just scared children, they were warriors, all three of them forged in fire and fear. They couldn't afford to falter now. Together. The boy shouted, and the others echoed him, the words a rallying cry that thrummed with life. They broke free from the dark, launching themselves into the light. With each stride, they could almost taste hope, feel its warmth flooding their veins. But as they crossed the threshold, the shadows lunged one last time, wrapping around the cabin, ready to snatch them back into its clutches. Suddenly, the exit slammed shut, jolting everyone as the barrier between light and dark surged and crackled. Security doors sealed with a thunderous noise, vibrating through the metal walls. The cabin shook as the shadows slammed against the surface, clawing at their newfound safe haven. What happened? A woman cried, fumbling back to catch her breath. The cabin around them felt disturbingly quiet, the fluorescent lights flickering as if wounded. The boy held up his bear, suddenly thinking of the power it represented. "We're safe now," he yelled, but doubt crept in, emerging like a sliver of ice in his chest. Had they truly escaped? Then reality struck. The thrumming darkness seeped through the cracks of the door, a vicious reminder that the fight was far from over. A voice echoed in their minds. "You can't run from me, I will always find you." Fear twisted in the boy's stomach, dread cloaking him once more. What if it does come for us again? And just like that, they knew they couldn't rest. Not yet, the flickering light in the cabin slowed, shadows creeping again, hungering for freedom. Get ready. The sturdy man commanded, determination etched in his features. We need a plan. But first, the boy felt at the bear's soft fur, a whisper of reassurance. What would he do next? The truth loomed over them all as they stood at the brink of a new battle. The stakes were higher now, the shadows unfurling with a vengeance. Would their bond be enough to fend off the darkness lurking ahead? The shadows pulsed against the door, a living thing, hungry and relentless. The boy's heart thudded in his chest, echoing the urgency in the sturdy man's voice. We don't have much time. They'll break through. We need to figure out how to fight back. The atmosphere was charged, all fear coiling tightly around them like a snake, waiting to strike. The boy clutched his bear, its soft fur a strange comfort amid the chaos. He could feel the weight of their situation pressing down, squeezing the air from his lungs. Can we push the door? A passenger suggested, panic threading through his words as he stepped forward. No. The flight attendant interjected sharply. We need to contain the darkness. If we open it, we might be letting it in, but it's already here. The boy shouted, frustration bubbling within him. He was tired of being scared. The shadows whispered, and their voices gnawed at his confidence. We can't just sit around. The twins, with their eyes wide and frantic, nodded in agreement. What if we use the light? One of them proposed, casting a glance at the flickering bulbs above. It seemed to weaken the shadows before. That's it, the sturdy man exclaimed, a spark igniting in his gaze. If we can create a stronger light, maybe we can force them back even more. There has to be something here we can use. As the group scattered, searching for anything that could amplify their glimmer of hope, the boy racked his mind. His bear had felt warm, almost alive. Could it do something? What was the secret behind its softness? Wait! He called out, grasping the teddy tightly, feeling its mission. What if love is the light we need? It's not just brightness, it's how we feel. He looked at the twins. We have to believe in each other. A ripple of confusion swept through the group, but the sturdy man straightened up, tapping into the energy that pulsed between them. He's right. We need to focus on what connects us. Everyone, center yourselves. Think of someone or something you love, someone who gives you strength. The cabin fell silent for a moment, each person closing their eyes, breathing deeply. The boy felt warmth radiate from his bear, his connection to the twins buzzing between them. Love, he realized, was more powerful than any shadow. With renewed determination, he squeezed his teddy, feeling a pulse of energy emanate from it. I believe in us. He shouted, and the air thickened with purpose. The twins joined in, their voices lifting, echoing a chorus of faith. I believe in us. I believe in us. As the harmony built, the flickering lights surged, casting a warm glow around them. The shadows pressed closer, sinister tendrils stretching as if to smother this burgeoning light. Panic flooded back, but the boy didn't waver. He could feel something stirring, a shift in the air. The lights exploded in brightness, flickering and swirling like a cyclone. The shadows recoiled, screeching in fury, their forms twisting. No. This isn't over. They hissed, their words laced with venom. The boy clutched the bear tighter, and in a bold moment, he stepped forward as the light radiated further. We're not afraid of you. You have no power over us. His voice crescendoed above the noise, igniting courage in everyone else, but even in this moment of triumph, the door rattled violently, a reminder that darkness had yet to be vanquished. One of the twins paled. What if this isn't the end? The security doors vibrated ominously, a foreboding sign that the shadows were retaliating, desperate to silence the source of their fear. The boy sensed the tension, uncertainty creeping back in. Suddenly, the lights dimmed slightly, a harsh reminder that they were still under siege. They had pushed back, but at what cost? Shadows curled around the reinforced door, yearning to seep through, hungry for discord. "Get ready," the sturdy man warned again, eyes narrowing. "We need to prepare for their next move." The boy's heart raced as realization dawned on him. They had found a flare of light, but it wouldn't last forever. Would love be enough to withstand the assault? As dread washed over him, so did the weight of another question. How would they survive the next wave of darkness approaching? What truly held this fierce malevolence at bay, and could they harness it when the time came? The boy's heart raced, his pulse thundering in his ears as the shadows swayed like a coiling serpent, teasing the edges of their fragile sanctuary. The dim light flickered ominously, barely holding the darkness at bay. Just when they thought they'd found hope, it was slipping through their fingers. What if? The sturdy man's eyes darted to the door, his voice trembling ever so slightly. What if the light can only hold them off for so long? The boy felt the pit in his stomach deepen. "We have to find a way to make it stronger," he cried, his words filled with desperation. Hope was dimming by the second, and he couldn't allow that. "Maybe we can use our voices?" one of the twins suggested, her voice wavering as she exchanged glances with her brother. "Like an emotional battery?" "Yes," the sturdy man lit up, urgency fueling him. "Everyone, we need to sing. Sing about what we love. It'll keep the light alive." The thought filled the boy with both fear and determination. "What if it's not enough?" he whispered, but he quickly squashed that doubt. "We have to try." They formed a circle, hands clasped, their breaths shallow but hearts pounding louder than the dying lights. "Okay," the sturdy man urged. "On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Their voices blended together, shaky at first, but gaining confidence as they sang about their homes, their families, the moments that brought warmth to their lives. Each note carried with it a surge of power, a wave pushing back against the dark tide. The shadows responded, swirling and thrumming angrily, a cacophony of hisses slashing through the air. "You're weak. You cannot hope to defeat us." The dark voices rose in a frenzy, mocking them as it pressed harder against the door. "Don't listen," the boy shouted, pouring everything he felt into the melody. "They lie." In that instant, a brilliant flash illuminated the cabin, coming from the boy's bear, now pulsing with golden light. The others noticed it too, eyes wide in disbelief. "What? How is that possible?" one of the flight attendants breathed, eyes fixed on the glow radiating from the teddy bear. "It's the love we put in," he shouted, tumbling to the realization that it wasn't just love itself but their collective belief that made them strong. The glow intensified, and the shadows recoiled, but the boy felt a sliver of doubt return. "What if it's not enough?" he murmured, fear creeping back into his heart, but he couldn't allow the uncertainty to take root. He squeezed his bear tightly, closing his eyes. "You'll never take us down," he shouted, channeling every ounce of love and bravery he could muster. Suddenly, a massive surge of light erupted from the bear, flinging away the shadows as if they were made of paper. The shadows screamed, their forms splintering and fading into nothingness. But amidst the brilliance, something shifted. An eerie wind howled through the cabin, chilling the air, as if the shadows were retreating and regrouping. As the light flickered and the eerie noise surged, the sturdy man shouted over the chaos, teeth gritted. "What's happening? This is just an illusion, we can't let it." But the weight of dread settled in the pit of the boy's stomach once again. The shadows were regrouping. And as the wind intensified, he felt a heavy unease settle over the group. They had been pushed back but not defeated. A chilling realization struck him. What if they return stronger next time? He felt panic surge through him like an electric current. "We need a real plan. What do they want?" he yelled desperately. But before anyone could respond, the lights flickered dangerously, and the door rattled violently. They could hear the familiar sinister whispers. "Prepare yourselves," the sturdy man said, voice firm. "They're coming back." Just then, shadows began to seep under the door, creeping like dark smoke, twisting and writhing. The boy gripped his bear tighter, heart racing. And in the back of his mind, one dreaded thought loomed: what if love wasn't enough to hold them back for long? As the shadows spiraled closer, darkness threatened to consume everything. What strategy could they employ to outsmart the shadows when they returned, and would they harness their true strength in time? The door rattled violently, sending shudders through the walls of the cabin. The boy's heart pounded, each beat a frantic drum in the heavy silence that followed. Air felt electric around them, crackling with fear and uncertainty. The shadows beneath the door writhed and twisted, as if eager to escape their confines and taste the warmth of the cabin again. "Don't yield!" the sturdy man shouted, rallying the group despite his quivering voice. His expression was fierce, a mask to hide the terror welling behind his eyes. The boy could see the determination in his stance, a thin line drawn against the encroaching dark. "Let us try again," one of the twins cried, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. The boy nodded, feeling the familiar stir of hope battling against his rising panic. Fingers still intertwined, they began to sing once more, pouring out their fears and the recollections of better days. Voices wove together, growing stronger, on the verge of breaking apart as the shadows pressed in, yet, the very essence of their song was now laced with urgency. Every phrase became an act of defiance, a desperate cry against the darkness. As they sang, the golden aura from the boy's bear pulsed more brightly, reaching across the suffocating gloom. But the shadows didn't retreat completely. With each note, they shrieked louder, morphing into a thrumming growl that reverberated through the cabin. "Pathetic. You think you can hold us back with mere memories? Shut up!" the boy shouted, feeling a spark ignite within him. "You don't know anything about love." No longer just a product of fear, their voices gained a fierce strength, shaking the very floor beneath them. They fought back against the waves of darkness that threatened to engulf them, pouring all they had into the melody, love for family, dreams yet unfulfilled, the laughter shared in moments that felt eternal. But then, a sudden gust of wind blasted through the tiny space, extinguishing the flickering lights and plunging them into utter darkness. The cabin pulsed with a chilling stillness, a weighty silence as if the world itself held its breath. The shadows turned into a smothering fog that engulfed their circle. "Sing louder," the sturdy man urged, his voice strained but powerful. "They can't take what we don't let them have." As voices erupted again in a fierce crescendo, an overwhelming wave of despair threatened to drown them. The shadows grew closer, nearly touching their skin, cold and seeping with a chill that gnawed at their courage. The boy's breath hitched, constricted by the relentless fears clamoring within him. Then, a sound of child's laughter erupted in the midst of the chaos, high-pitched and joyous. It broke through the heavy air. "What is happening?" one of the flight attendants gasped, eyes darting around, wide with fright. Seeing the boy's eyes widen, the sturdy man stepped back, momentarily breaking their circle. "We need to focus." The laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls like 1,000 tiny bells tinkling in the dark. The boy clutched his bear tighter, confronting the chaos swirling around them. Suddenly, the laughter morphed into a melody of its own, intertwining with the cries of shadows. The boy turned to find the source of the sound. In that instant, he realized the twins were no longer just frightened children, they had become a force of light, summoning something much deeper. They weren't just singing about love, they were invoking the joy woven into their hearts. They were harnessing memories that would not be snuffed out, though fear had tried. And then, amid the cacophony, the boy found himself shouting, "We won't be afraid anymore." With that proclamation, the shadows trembled at the edges, skirting like insects before a flame, unsure of how to deal with the sudden surge of unity within the group. As the last powerful note lingered in the air, shadows hesitated, swirling less menacingly. But they weren't gone. Just subdued for a brief, fragile moment. The boy looked at the sturdy man and the twins, eyes wide with resolve. Could they keep this light alive? Could they push the darkness back for good? Or would the shadows reclaim their ground when the boy and his friends least expected it? Whispers grew louder, threatening to engulf the last notes of their song. "Are you ready for the real challenge?" came a low voice, a promise of the fury to come. The boy's heart dropped. Time was running out. The darkness roared, a tempest threatening to pull them under once more. But the warmth of their unity shone fiercely, a beacon in the overwhelming night. "We can't stop now." The boy shouted, squeezing his bear tighter, feeling the vibrations of hope surging through him. The sturdy man rallied the group, his voice cutting through the chaos. We're stronger together. We've already pushed back the shadows, we can do it again. With newfound courage, the passengers steadied themselves, forming a resolute chain of support, their hands clasped tightly. The twins, their eyes bright with defiance, nodded firmly. Let us remember what we love, one twin urged. Our families, our favorite memories. As they began to share their stories of laughter and warmth, hearts lightened, the energy between them building like a storm. Picture the warmth of home. The boy exclaimed, his voice rising. Remember the last time you felt truly happy. Laughter erupted, a sound powerful enough to disrupt the shadows inching closer. Let us not forget who we are. With each shared memory, the light of their connection brightened. The cabin gleamed as if infused with golden sunlight, shimmering with every recollection. The shadows writhed, anger igniting their malevolence. Foolish mortals. Hissed the dark voice, its fury palpable. You think you can defy the darkness? Watch us. The boy yelled back, spirit soaring. We will shine brighter than your shadows. Their voices surged, a melody of resilience and hope, swelling against the encroaching fear. Fight back. One twin shouted, memories dancing in her eyes. We're not just a collection of frightened kids, we're a team. From their collective voices emerged a radiant glow, illuminating the cabin like a magnificent dawn breaking free from the night. The shadows recoiled, shrieks echoing as they twisted into agonizing shapes, writhing in despair. Sensing their retreat, the boy felt an undeniable surge of hope. We're chasing you away, he declared, stepping forward, his little body trembling but firm in resolve. We are stronger together than you can ever be. Suddenly, the figure of darkness collapsed inward, swirling violently, desperate to maintain its hold. But love, joy, and bonds forged through fear coursed through the cabin, a potent force pushing against the dark with ferocity. Then, a magnificent flash erupted from the boy's bear, bright and blinding, coursing through the space like a tidal wave of light. The shadows screamed, flaring back in a desperate plunge towards safety. As energy crackled in the air, the boy knew it was working. Keep going. The sturdy man shouted, driving the virulent darkness further back. With renewed vigor, they all called out, voices blending in harmony, resonating with love, strength, and unity. The dark figure faltered, edges fuzzy and flickering under the weight of their combined energy. No. This can't be. It howled, its voice a slithering hiss. Let us show you. One twin called, stepping confidently into the light. You're not welcome here. With one final surge, the shadows began to fracture, losing their dense grip on reality. The cabin filled with an ethereal glow, expanding outward, swirling with rainbow colors. Suddenly, everything went still. Time halted, shadows still and shivering in the light before fading into nothingness, swept away like leaves in the wind. As the glow illuminated every corner of the cabin, the passengers gasped, witnessing the miraculous transformation. The oppressive weight had lifted, replaced by chilling silence that now felt like peace. Did we do it? The boy breathed, surprise flooding his lungs. Look! One of the twins cried, pointing to the front of the cabin where the grip of darkness had dissipated, leaving behind cambering shadows retreating into the horizon. As the last traces of the unknown faded, laughter bubbled from the passengers, relief flooding in like fresh air. We made it! Someone exclaimed. The boy stood tall, still clutching his bear. And together, we won. Back down again. They hugged one another, a group of unlikely heroes, bonds of friendship forged in the darkness, standing strong against any future shadows they might face. From now on, we hold on to this light, the sturdy man declared, pride gleaming in his eyes. Together, we'll always fight. Together. The children cheered, their voices mixing with newfound hope, and as the private jet soared onward, the night sky swallowed them in a blanket of stars, the warmth of triumph illuminating their hearts forevermore. This was their moment. This was a lesson that would last a lifetime, a bond of indomitable spirit, shining brighter than any darkness, lighting the way ahead. Don't forget to hold on to your light, wherever you go, and now, listen up. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on our incredible future stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now, it feeds the algorithm and helps us grow. And flood that comments section with your thoughts and theories about this thrilling conclusion. I want to hear every single reaction. Lastly, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finale. Your support makes all the difference.